a no is temporary. A no is right here. That doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean that is your conclusion. It doesn't mean the book is closed. No is an opportunity to turn the page and read the next chapter, because we are given a gift every day to be able to say, hey, yeah, it was no yesterday, but what could it be today?
Welcome to the Mindset on Resilience podcast, where we are building more confident, resilient, and mentally strong communities. I'm your host, Daniel Truelove, and I am excited about the guest that we have today. Overall, just an amazing person. I met her and just a ball of energy. And as soon as we met, we instantly connected. And I knew that we were going to partner in doing something. And today is a day that we have an opportunity to learn more about her amazing career. She is a two-time Grammy Music Educator Award semifinalist, national board certified teacher, and a yogi. But an overall great person. I introduced you none other than the most amazing Miss Amber Moss. How are you doing?
I'm so great. Thank you so much, Daniel, for having me today. I just am reiterating everything you said. When I met you, it was just one of those where you know the energy level and the light of a person. And I couldn't wait to see what our future in our connection would be. So, this is kind of the springboard of what good things are to come. I'm excited to be here.
Well, I'm excited to for not only myself to dive a little bit deeper, but also for those that listen to the podcast to dive a little bit deeper as well. And so I want to start off there. Tell us a little bit about who is Amber Moss. That's just kind of like crazy. When people ask you, it's like, what do I share? So tell us a little bit about like your journey into like education.
That's a great question. I think it's a loaded question anytime you ask an individual, who are you? Um, so honestly, anytime anybody asks who I am, I bring it back to why I am who I am. So the reason that I feel so passionate about life is instilling life and love and passions in other people. So who I am is the person who wants to be a part of other people's success at all points in time. Um, that stemmed at a very young age when I think that I just fell in love with being around people and seeing how what I could do would help them be successful in something else. So I actually started as a little musician when I was 2 years old and graduated high school, went straight into teaching after my college career and taught in every kind of socioeconomic background that you can think of in the state of Arkansas, which gives me a really good, I guess, viewpoint on who people are and why they do what they do. And um, I was able to kind of forge ahead, I guess. So in each different district that I taught in, I found a need and then I developed myself for that need. So my very first district, it was a very low poverty status in the Delta region of Arkansas. And I embodied the presence of, hey, we're going to give these kids whatever they need. So I would go to Walmart, I'd buy things, we'd have music thing concerts or whatever, and they'd all have a new shirt, or we would build a art whatever we needed to for the program. And then when I moved up into Northwest Arkansas, all of my students mainly were ESOL, so English language learners. And I had no idea how to teach that, even though I taught music. And that became a, oh my gosh, I've got to do something. So I got my endorsement to teach ESOL. And then after COVID, we noticed, a decline in those interpersonal skills, those social emotional skills. So I became a yoga teacher and a social emotional learning director at a private nonprofit school here in town. So after that, I keep feeling like I forge ahead. Those are little tidbits of who Amber Moss is. Um, Music is a really big part of my life. And I thought that it was what I needed to do. But what I realized in the last year or so is leadership is really at the front of who I am and what I was built to do. And it's a gift. It's such a gift to be able to know that I don't have to work very hard in helping others see what they can do as leaders. Anytime you can find your gifting and then you turn it into a job, I think that's when you find that beautiful, just utopia of not having to work a day in your life.
Love it, love it, love it. And so I want to start there, kind of like you talk about, which is interesting because you talked about this love for music that started when you were, 2 years old, and then now we're speaking about leadership. And those, for some people, maybe thinking that, oh, that's like kind of like two different things. How did you kind of like grow up as it related to music and obviously having a career to where you taught other, students music? Tell us a little bit about that music journey, and we can't leave out the fact two-time semifinalist for Grammy. Like I need to know about this. Tell me about this.
So, music, I'm a singer and I'm a classically trained pianist. So, when I started, it was singing in the church and singing at local school productions and whatnot. Then I started piano in third grade because in first and second, my friends would come to school and they'd play something on the piano and I would just play back what they had been practicing. So, their recital piece, they would come and play it and I would just play it back. And so my mom, I came from a very poor family as well. And so my mom sought out opportunities, and there was actually somebody who paid for my piano lessons my whole life. So that goes back to the gratitude and resilience of finding ways to do things. My mom really forged a path for that and allowed me to do what I was passionate about. Um, so started taking piano. Actually, went on to be an all-state singer, got a full ride, a scholarship to the University of Central Arkansas for my voice, and the I guess leadership was always an undertone of that, but I didn't kind of clue into it. So when I became that music teacher, it wasn't just about teaching music. And I think a lot of music educators, that's the path. They're so passionate about music that they only focus on that. And I feel like I can kind of say that because my husband's also a music teacher. And he's in line of music is his passion, and then teaching kind of comes along with the ride. And with me, it was more, yes, music is my passion, but teaching is also a huge passion. So the leadership kind of lent itself into everything that I did as a music teacher. So when I was nominated quite a few times for that Grammy. I still to this day do not know who nominated me. It could be members of the community, it could be students, former students. Um, but I never made it. I would get to the quarterfinals, which is a list of 200 something music teachers across the US. And then the very first time I made it to the semifinals, I just was astounded because you're on a list with people across the nation who are doing amazing things. Um, and it's the Recording Academy. So when I mean, they actually award from that list of 20 or 25, I can't remember if it's 20 or 25, but they award the top person a Grammy Award. So it's a way for them to acknowledge the work that music educators are doing great things for music as well. Um, one of the coolest opportunities that I had was during COVID when we came back to teaching. I did a Women's History Month in March, and I actually brought in a ton of people through Zoom. Chantal Kreviazek, I don't know if you've ever heard of her, but she's a Canadian. I think she's Grammy nominated, but she did the Feels Like Home song. Feels like home to me on How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Um, do you know? Yeah. Okay. So she did that. That's my husband and my wedding song. Like that was the first dance that we had. So to have her on with my girls choir and have her empower, she was amazing. Tiger Lily is now Tiger Lily Gold. But it's two girls that live in Nashville, and they came and they sang to my girls, and we had connections. It was just a really cool tie-in, and how you say like, how does leadership tie into music? That's how. So we had, oh my gosh, Maria. I can never say her last name right. Ayerbi. She's a Grammy winner. She's a Latin Grammy winner, and she came in. She does production and sound engineering. She's phenomenal. She's done great things with people all across the world. So bringing in those people and showing people how they can lead their own lives, whether it be through a music facet or maybe it's not music, maybe it's just leading your life, and then having that opportunity to say, hey, we're going to keep going, whatever path it is. I'm not going to stop even when I'm told I'm going to stop.
Got you. That's awesome. That's awesome. And so, like you said, I love it because even when you were speaking earlier, you were talking about how whether it was like your ESOL students, or you kind of like just found a way to kind of find out what the gap was, and you just would fill those gaps. And I think when you think about leadership, that's what that is. Like where is the need, and is there going to be anybody that raises their hand and says, "Hey, I'm willing to do something about that. I'm willing to fill that gap." And I'm excited because that's what we all need, especially when we have communities that look like some of the ones that we grew up in, where we may have not had all the things that we wanted in life, and then you get into a space to where you see those things and you're like, well, who's going to do something about that? And it's me. And the one thing that I want to kind of like pivot a little bit and actually speak about that for a moment. How much of a factor do you think that played in you being effective as an educator? You said that you had somebody to pay for your piano lessons, and when there was a need in there, you was like, okay, well, we're going to make something happen. How do you think that factored into that your upbringing?
I think when you have those experiences of someone stepping out of their way to do something exponential for you, then you are more geared towards doing that for other people. And I think sometimes that might be what's lacking in our whole society, not to get too into it, but just the people who've never had the experience of someone going out on a limb in service for them, they don't get it. It's an internal kind of, hey, not that you scratch my back and I scratch yours, but when someone goes out of their way to make sure that you are successful, I think that's what makes the best teacher. So when they're pushing you because they see your ability and they know what you have to offer the world, I just got chills. Those are the best educators because they believe in you and they see something that you might not even see in yourself. And that is where it kind of cycles. So as you're giving, then or being given to, then the next person you give to, they're going to see that and it's going to continue on. It's not going to stop just because someone, you know, I really don't see it stopping. I don't know that it ever has. I've always believed that your influence, you'll never see it stop if you're doing it the right way. There's never an end to your influence.
I think that one of the things that's super important about life is that we should always live with an area of tension. And what I mean by that is that we should always have a mentor, which is somebody that pulls us. Like there's somebody that stretches us, somebody that may have already accomplished the things that we want in life. And we see them as inspiration and guidance. And they're what? They're our drivers, right? But then, kind of what you just mentioned is that I think is what we don't always have is what we should, which plays into that reciprocity, which is the mentee. If I have somebody that's pulling me, then I should what have other individuals that I'm pouring into, and then I'm what growing them as well. And if we always live in that space of that tension to where I'm always being pulled, but guess what? It's not just me that's growing. I'm also what pouring back, and so it's like this water. Like I don't know if there's this video one time to where it's like there's water that's being poured in this and it has like a little hole in it, but then it's like being poured out on something. So as soon as you're what something's being poured into you, and then what goes and drops out on somebody else. And I think that's kind of a healthy way and kind of a visual of what you just described.
I love that to your point of being poured out, you have to be poured into. So I think that's a really important component that if I'm giving of myself, someone's got to be like a mentor or somebody needs to be pouring back into me because you cannot pour from a dry cup. So, and I think that's where a lot of people are lately, just in that experience as being expected to pour out, but they don't have someone pouring in.
So a question I want to ask you as it relates to that, because kind of what you're thinking about, I feel like people get into a space when it comes to can I push past because let's say they don't have somebody pouring into them. How tell me a little bit about like your resilience journey. I know that we all have our own different journeys as it relates to having to overcome different challenges. Uh, how would you say your resilience journey has been for you?
So it's really fun and exciting to talk about this because I think a lot of people have this conception that resilience and perseverance and grit are all the same things. And I really believe that they're on the same pathway, but they're in different lanes. So when you think about resilience versus grit versus perseverance, they really kind of fit in their own pockets, but they're all gearing towards the same result, which is that, overcome attitude, right? So when you're thinking resilience, I don't know that it can be something that is expressed in a blip of time or a moment. I think resilience lends itself to a track record of a very long time period rather than perseverance, I think. And this is, again, just personal viewpoints, but perseverance could lend itself to maybe, oh, I made it through this past week. This week was really hard, but I made it through it. Resilience takes a little bit more effort. And when you are like thinking, I always go back to the Teddy Roosevelt, the man in the arena, of when you're covered in mud, you're still, the fight is still there. And you know that there's joy on the other side of it, but you have to pick yourself up without any support or help necessarily from anyone else. So the mindset has to be okay, I know that I am down. I know that I have been kind of beaten up, but I got to pick myself up and I've got to be the one that is the champion of this arena. So, whatever it may be, whether it's in your job, whether it is being told no through different things, whether it is, it, it just, it lends itself to be more of a concept of longevity. Like I've got to get through it, and the sweetness factor is that we're able to say, "Hey, man, look, I was resilient and I overcame."
I love the fact that you talked about resilience is just kind of this. You see it kind of later on. Like perseverance is like you say, it can be momentary. I made it through today. I made it through this week, and you persevered through. But that resilience, and you mentioned something kind of like being all dirty, but there's just like this something that keeps you going. And you also talked about how you may get a lot of no's along your journey. I think about me, like I had different moments and times to where it required resilience, and now I look back, at where I am now, and I'm like, man, like how did I get through there? But there was always something that wouldn't let me stay where I was. Like I knew that there was something on the other side of this, and that's exactly what you just mentioned. But what happens when you do get those no's, and you kind of know a little bit about your story? Like, how do you like you've gotten no's? Like, so tell me a little bit about your no journey and how did you kind of like weather through the storm of getting through all the no's to eventually getting the yes that you desired?
Yeah. So I think hearing no for the first time, when you're used to hearing yes all the time, it's really hard. So let's talk first about that. Like a lot of people probably hear lots and lots of yeses. The majority of people, right? I think the hardest no's are the ones that you want the yes the most. And that to me is where resilience plays a part. So you have to be willing to sit with that for a moment and accept the fact that it was a no. It doesn't mean that it was a no on because you're not worthy of it or it's because you're not the right person. It could simply be that there is, like you said, there's something better on the other side. And you were not supposed to go through what you thought you needed or what you thought you wanted because there was something so much better just waiting for you to be there. But timing is everything. So even when I think about the no's, um, way back in high school, I had always been an all region singer, first, second chair. And when I moved from junior high to high school, my very first year, I made an alternate chair. So I didn't even make the all region choir. And that was kind of a pivotal moment of, okay, well, I'm going to hear this no, but I'm never going to hear that again. So mindset of taking on the challenge of the no and saying, okay, well, I heard no, but I don't want to hear no in this room again, right? So, what can I do? What are the steps that I can take to make sure that I'm doing everything on my part to not hear that no? Now, situations can be out of our control. So, when you're transitioning, so I knew I'd probably wrestled for about 3 years in my teaching career. Of I knew that I was called to do something more and to empower more people. And I had discussions with mentors in my life and different people that were pouring into me. And I kept wanting to stay in the safe space because it was a yes, right? So we tend to stay where it's safe and there is a yes without having to push boundaries and hear that no. When I was ready to start looking, I heard no after no after no. I heard some yeses, but then I said no. There's just a way of knowing that, hey, this might not be the right opportunity for me. So even I said no. And no became more of a reflective piece than a hurdle for me to have to jump over. So through that experience, I was able to learn, hey, with every no, sit back and reflect and think, why? Why is it a no? Is it on me? Do I need to do something more? Is it on the other person? Is it on the company? Is it on, you know, what is the reason why? And if I could decide that it wasn't me, then I could keep going, right? If I started to see, hey, it's you, then I had to do something different and pivot into something better.
How was what was your journey for that? Because I remember being young and hearing the word no, and obviously, that didn't feel good. But I also remember some no's that I got in my professional career, and it didn't feel good. I remember the first no that I got when I was working at a university in Arizona, and I just knew for a fact that there was this opportunity for a promotion and that I was gonna get it. And I heard no, and I was like, "What do you mean no?" Like everything that I had done within that university, just like led to this was going to be a yes. And so, like, how do you get to that space, or how did you get to the space to where you started internalizing the no's, like literally taking no as an opportunity for growth versus taking no as an indictment on your character or an indictment on your identity?
That's a great question. I think it took many no's before I started the switch. So I think if I had a single no, I sat with it and thought to myself, "Oh my gosh," especially what you were saying, like, I knew that this was gonna be it. Why is it a no? What do you even mean? And you take it, you attack, like, it's an attack against your character, against who you are, against your intellect, all of those things. So I think after you hear no so many times, I think it was in the vicinity of 58 to 60 times. And I and yeah.
Talking about 60, 50 out 60 no's. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, right. So when I say that out loud, at the time I kept tracking and I'm like, okay, okay, okay. But now that, hindsight's 2020, that is a lot of resilience to say, most people at that moment, they would have just said, okay, I'm just gonna stay where I'm at, right? Like I'm done. I'm not gonna push past these four walls. I'm here. This is what I'm doing. But I felt like I needed to do something bigger. So that intrinsic of being, hey, somebody somewhere is going to benefit from what I have to offer, and I know it. And I know it's beyond just the students in my classroom. And I didn't want to give that up either because the leading of a legacy is that you never know where it's going to stop and you don't know how many times they're going to think back and be like, "Oh, Miss Moss said blah blah blah," right? And it'll be, when they're 30 and I'll be an old granny, right? But it's so much more than just the here and now. So when you think about having those no's, you have to have that wide angle lens approach rather than that zoom in. So I think, like, the the kids with their little stretch out with their point 0.5 on the iPhone, right? I don't know if I can say iPhone. Oh, so on their device. um, but thinking more along the lines of how much more space can I see beyond just what's right here. So a no is temporary. A no is right here. That doesn't mean it's forever. It doesn't mean that is your conclusion. It doesn't mean the book is closed. No is an opportunity to turn the page and read the next chapter, because we are given a gift every day to be able to say, hey, yeah, it was no yesterday, but what could it be today? And our book isn't done until we're done living this life on earth. And even then, if you've done your job here, your story keeps going because people that you have influenced, the impact is still there.
One of the things that I hear from you, it seems like you are a person that, uh, like it seems like you're like a purposeful individual. Like when I hear you speak, I feel like you're not just living your life according to, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. Like it seems like you have like some type of guiding principle. And so the question I have, which I think is going to be a very interesting one, do you feel like your mindset, when you talk about these no's, do you feel like the fact that you do have an understanding of purpose, or do you have an understanding of like there's more beyond this? Since that seems like it's been a part of your journey, does that kind of help you get over that? Get over those no's? And how does purpose play like a role, like in your journey, or has played a role within your journey?
Yeah, I think that's awesome. It definitely does play a part in being able to hear and accept the no's. I think if you don't know who you are, then you're going to get stuck with those no's. So any no you hear, if you don't know your own worth, your own value, what you bring to the table, then yeah, you're probably sunk. Just point blank. If you can't accept who you are and what you have to offer the world, then the no is going to keep you where you are. And I don't think anybody should feel trapped into, oh, the status quo or whatever. I think one of my life goals is to empower people to pursue passion and their purpose. So that to me is giving them the tools that they need to be successful. I don't think that anybody should live life without purpose, because then you don't have your next steps, right? If you're just kind of going with the flow and like, oh, as it comes, wishy washy, where the wind takes me. Now, as a yogi, I do believe like I can handle that. I can go with the wind too. But you have to know what it is that makes you an exceptional human being. What do you have to offer the next person? And everyone has something that's unique and special that we can give to one another, and I think that's what makes us such cool human beings. And when we connect, it gives us such a purpose to live life together.
One of the things that I think is amazing is like you have this kind of like just glow about you. Like you like I don't know. I'm pretty sure your friends all probably say the same things. Like you're probably the person that everybody calls when they have stuff going on. It's like you have very much so like cool, calm, and like demeanor to you, and I think that's amazing. And I think that there's an element to where we have to kind of what you were just speaking to. We have to go down that discovery journey of who we are, and not only who we are, but also um, where we're going. And I think that most people, and I work with a lot of young people pretty much on a daily basis, and the biggest challenge that I see going on is a lot of people don't know like who they are. They don't know everything you talked about from that purpose and that direction and that guidance. And I know that there's something more, something bigger. Like it seems like it's becoming less and less of a known commodity and more something that is kind of like fleeting. And just listening to you speak, I know that this is something that a lot of people need to hear. It's like just that to be confident in who you are, know who you are. Was that a journey for you, or was that something that you've always had? Just an assurance of who you are.
I think that it really has been a part of me since I was born. So I think that I walk into a room and it really doesn't matter what other people think of me, because I walk in and I'm like, "Hey, if you want to participate in the light that I have, come on." Right? Like, more people, more party, right? I think a lot of what you just said is so true, though, for young people. I don't know that I've seen a young person walk into a room with their chin up and being able to know it doesn't matter what anyone else in that room thinks of them, because they can walk in and know that they are who they are. And you're right. Like, we've kind of gotten away from that with our young people population, and that's part of my passion too. It's just, and I know that's your passion as well, is empowering those youth to know, hey, I've got this, and it doesn't matter that my friends next to me are making fun of me. In fact, this is really funny that you said that. My word or phrase of the year, normally I do one word, but this year it's two words, and it's let them, let her, let him, whoever. Okay, they want to make fun of my lunch that I'm eating, let them. They want to make fun of my nose? Let them. They don't like my red hair? Let them, right? So owning up the truth of it, you're out of my control. What you choose to do, that is not within my control. But what I am in control of is me. And when I can accept me and know that I'm in control of myself, that puts a whole different, viewpoint spectrum on how I'm going to live my life, right?
I think I was talking to some youth. It was like this week, and one of the things that we were talking about was just getting to that space of like the not caring. And I'm not saying not caring in a bad way, but not caring, putting more care or more worth into somebody else's words or somebody else's opinions than you do your own. And it was so interesting because it's more so groupthink. Well, if this is what the group accepts, then I'll accept it. If this is what the group believes, then I'll believe it. And I'm excited to for more people to like know that that's something that is important, because I'm not someone who's always had that. I mean, being oh my goodness, because in our family there's a rule: if they buy it, you wear it. And so I know that I have to wear these shoes to school, and so I'm just thinking in that moment, man, tomorrow's gonna be a bad day, because I already know like what's gonna happen when that moment happened, and the moment did happen, but there were things like that that would take place, and I started to put a lot of focus and intention on the words and opinions that other people had, and so for me it was a journey to get to the space to where like my opinions matter, to my thoughts matter. And so I would love to kind of segue from that into asking you like kind of how did you develop the mindset that you had that has allowed for you to be a successful educator, that allows for you to be a successful musician and singer, that has allowed for you to transition to hear no after no, 58, 60 no's, and still say, you know what, there's still something else that's out there for me. Tell me a little bit about your mindset journey and what has played the most pivotal parts in developing that.
I think reflecting and journaling for me played a huge part in getting my thoughts on paper and then being able to go back and reread what that mindset was. I think a lot of times um, there are people in the world that their thoughts, there's a lot of thoughts going on, right? So if you can centralize them into one place and make it pen to paper, not typing it, literally writing it down, I think that makes a huge difference in how you can focus. I would sit down and I'd write a couple things of what went well, what could I do better the next day, and what do I want to keep doing, right? So in my lesson plan books, I would always have these little scribbled notes, and it might be, acronyms or abbreviations, but having that time to reflect on what you're doing, I think that's really important. And that's what has helped create this resilient mindset. I know that it's not normal. There are a lot of people that are like, hey, can you just give me the quick fix to be resilient? it's it's like working out a muscle. So when you go to the gym, you're lifting to get gains. The same thing with resilience. You've got to practice, like you said, that mindset. You've got to do some reflection. You've got to be quiet. You have to slow down and be still for a moment. And that's scary when we live in this world that is so instant gratification and it's so in your face about just all the things. For you to be still with your own thoughts, that scares a lot of people, right? Um, it's scary to me because I'm constantly on the go. I'm like, wait, nope, I don't think I want to be alone with my thoughts right now. Um, that I think those things played the biggest role. And then I think it makes a difference when you have not. And I think coming out of those things, my dad was very sick my whole lives, but he lived until 2004. So he got diagnosed in 1990 and passed away in 2004. So I think having that example of resilience too, defying all odds, that might be my definition of resilience, because everything tells you, oh no, like you're done. But resilience says yes, one more time. So just seeing that example and modeled out probably gave me a lot of where I'm at. And that's where I just want to give it back to other people. So even just spreading the word of, hey, how can I help you to be resilient? What is something, in your life, Daniel, what are you going through where, you need to be encouraged in your journey? Because it's not where it pauses. Resilience is a continuum.
That's good. I think that's a beautiful place for us to end right there. I appreciate you mentioning kind of your father, and I know you said he passed away in 2004. So I'm sorry about that but it really resonates with me because my father's journey. He's having some health challenges too, and my father's been Superman my entire life, but he's 81 and it's got it was one thing dementia, then there's some other things that have recently happened, and you kind of like start seeing life differently, and you start to process the reality of that life is fleeting, and so I appreciate you sharing that because there are moments and times to where, like you said, talk about those thoughts. Okay, don't think about that, but no, you really have to take the time to identify how do I really feel about this. How am I dealing with this? How am I processing this? Because if you don't, when those moments and those experiences happen, I think that's the reason why it's difficult for some of us to be resilient because we haven't taken the time to really identify what how I'm feeling and how will I deal with this if this was a real thing to occur within my life. And so um, thank you so much for all the wisdom and all the light that you've shared with us today. I have one thing that I like to do at the end of my segments, and it's called Better Days Ahead. And so, do you have any, maybe it's a quote or maybe it's something, wisdom that you live by? Is there anything that you would like, to share with us just to encourage somebody that may be listening to this? Hey, there are better days that are ahead for you.
So that's funny that you said that because yesterday I was struggling. Be like when I woke up and I did not want to get my workout in, and I sat there and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. And I thought to myself, but you need to do this, right? So this is the quote, and I posted it yesterday. But ability is what you're capable of doing. Motivation determines what you do. Attitude determines how well you do it. So if you're struggling to find your motivation, you have to start back at your ability to do the task at hand. You are able, you are capable. You just have to make sure that you take the first step and do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, and Miss Wallace, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank you.
appreciate it. Yeah, this has been an amazing. So I'll just leave it at that. You know, I think that you're able, you're capable. For everybody that's out there, I just want you to know that there are better days ahead. So just continue to find the motivation to put one foot in front of the other. Thank you so much for your time. This is another segment of the Mindset on Resilience podcast.